Hey, folks, welcome. This is the Counter Clipping Show number 98 for November 7th, 2022. This is the last pre-Compass Expo show that we're going to do. And before I forget to mention it, there will not be a Counter Clipping stream next week because I'm not going to get back from Compass Expo until probably later in the day. And I feel like it's going to be a bit much to ask me to get home at like 7 and then immediately jump on stream. So that will not be happening. We will take a week off and be back the following week for show number 99. Of course, show number 100 is coming up. So there's a little bit of CSR related news, but I am determined not to derail this show all the time with that. So we're not going to talk about it very much. Tune into any of the various communication channels, which are now all linked in the video description. And that should show up on the banner as well as soon as I remember to put the banner up. So tonight we are drinking, once again, Glenlivet 15, which is still very good. And we're getting started clipping the musket and pike dual pack from GMT. And we're just literally getting started with this. I pulled it off the shelf like 10 minutes ago. So there was going to be an unboxing of this, and the phone died halfway through, and I never like try and reassemble an unboxing video from that. So what's going on? We are continuing our last Blitzkrieg game. Very enjoyable. We're talking about playing some other BCS thing next. We'll see if that actually occurs. So we're enjoying that. Haven't gotten to Third Winter in a couple of weeks due to my schedule and the other guy's schedule, and then I'll be out of town for the rest of this week starting pretty early Wednesday morning. So anybody who is going to be at Compass Expo, please be sure to say hello. I will be recognizable in my Ardwulf's Lair garb, assuming I can find the shirts to wash them. So before we get started anywhere else, let us pull this up and say hello to Agray Day, Andrew Frankie, Bill Simone, Block Oddity, Brent McCabe, Brian Gash, Chad Kennedy, Chet Bell, Christopher Press, Daniel Silverthorne, Daniel Teets, David Imperato, Dirk Plexiglass, E4 Airman, Ed Holtzman, Farshad Niazi, Iggy Cricktal, The Legend Fucko, Jack P, Jason W, Jeff Beeler, Jeffrey Wesovich, Joe Faust, John Longshore is in the house, John Stanley, John Clark, Carl Crater from the Wargame Boot Camp, Kyle Reese, Lee Grant, Mark McNair, Mark Hodgkinson, Marty Sample is here. Marty, hopefully I'll see you up at Compass Expo, huh? Matt Davidson, Meandering Mike, Perfidious Albion, Rudy Armendariz, Ryan Willoughby, Steve Simonelli, Stigler is in the house, Terrence Bonham, Thomas Brandt, Thomas Bandy, Tim Greenhaw, Trent Turner, Vicky, welcome back, William Boardman, and William Bird. And I hope I didn't miss too many people there. We have a lot of people here, 124 people. This early in the show is actually a wee bit unusual. So I don't know if that's the topic or if it's my amazing and magnetic personality. I'm figuring that can't possibly be it. Or the CSR stuff. So let's talk about that and get that out of the way. So for those who haven't heard the news, and I've done my damnedest to make sure y'all have, the nominations have been announced. They are available on the webpage, the new website. There is a link in the video description to all of this stuff, including the Facebook group, the Consim World topic, which I actually haven't checked today, the Twitter feed. There is an Instagram feed, but I'm kind of trying to figure out how to run it, so I haven't put that in there yet. And a link to the final ballot, which has now been live for less than 72 hours. And I have to say that the response has been pretty spectacular. I think generally there have been expressions of being pleased at the slate of nominees that were announced. So hopefully everybody is happy with that. Lynn Pratt, welcome back. Tony Mammal, if I didn't get you, is still showing the October discount offer, really? Shouldn't be. Checking on that. I don't see that in there. That shouldn't be in there. It's not in there. I literally took it out right before the show. So Marty is not able to make Compass Expo. That is unfortunate. So there's a lot we had with the show with Dan on last week. Watch that if you want to hear a bunch of somewhat unstructured, more structured than that show usually gets. Talk about the CSRs and the categories and the process problems and all that other stuff and a lot of the considerations that are having to go into those discussions, which we are starting to have. I do not propose again to derail this. If I want to do that like a CSR thing on my channel, I'll do a separate thing for it. I'm not going to derail this for it. Tonight we're going to talk about the pre-order rundown from our friends at GMT. This is there's a lot. Let me put it that way. There's a lot of pre-orders, and we're going to go through them in no particular order. So I'm going to blame that for my the fact that we have 130 plus people right now for because I can't think of any other reason. And we are in fact clipping Musket and Pike Dual Pack, which looks real nice. Sorry about the unboxing not happening. I guess before I get started with that, let me mention what I imagine all of you have realized, which is that a lot of time has been consumed in the last few weeks with the CSRs. So if you haven't voted yet, you're not required to sign into anything, right? We're just going to manually check to make sure nobody voted 3 times. If you haven't voted yet, please do go register your votes with the CSR awards on the ballot. It is important that we get the turnout, and we want to get a sense of, now that we're actually collecting these numbers, we want to get a sense of how many people voted, and obviously we'd like the winners to be as to have as big a mandate as possible. Let me put it that way. You do not have to vote in every category for the votes that you did put in to be counted. That is correct. We did. Somebody, I think Stigler, asked about that last, and that's understandable, right? Not everybody has knowledge of all these things. I mean, I don't. I had to look stuff up. So particularly when it came to like the sci-fi games and some of the expansions for games I don't play and things like that. I mean, we've all heard of Storm Above the Reich, for example. But I haven't played it. No, I haven't. That is. I had to think about that. That is correct. I haven't played it. Half-Ass Gaming, welcome back. First of all, I will be happy to do a teaching game if we have the time at Compass Expo, which seems like maybe possible. Do I need to bring something? Because I can. So the old CSR. I'll have to check that. Doug, thank you. I will check that. If that's the old CSR website, then we have no control over that. So that may have been the original intention for the old site. The new website is at charlessrobertsawards.com. Thank you, Kevin Bertram, for helping us out with that domain. So vote for whatever you want. I am not officially. I mean, I suspect that folks who watch it all the time will understand that I have preferences in those lists, but I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm just trying to get as many people to vote as possible, and I'm inserting myself, hey, please go vote. Here's a link into basically every conversation that I can get away with doing that in. Our initial push on that is basically wrapped up, but we will push again in about 10 days and then push some more in about 10 days after that. And then that will take us to December 10th, which is where when the ballot will wrap up. So we will close it at the end of the day on December 10th. All right, so let's get to the topic, because as mentioned, there's rather a lot to get through here. And awesome, we have let's blow this up just a bit. There we go. Let's blow this up just a bit. So I made an effort. I won't swear that nothing slipped in, but I made an effort to leave out things like mounted maps for games and things like that, because we can talk about the games and we can mention the mounted map, but I don't see any reason to go through the page. Okay, so this is 18 India. This is an 18XX game. This is by a designer or group of designers known only as Tracks. I'm not sure what's up with that. Presumably, folks more in the loop on the 18xx circuit are already aware of who those folks are. But it's, it's a rail game. It is got hex tiles and a sort of, going by my very limited exposure to 18xx games, it's going to have hex tiles, and you're going to build railroad connections with the tiles, and then you're going to invest in stocks for the various rail companies. And That's true. I didn't plan it out so that this thing would be open on election day. Just so you know, we just, we wanted to get the ballot open as quickly as we could, and I won't give you a date when the winners will be released, but I will tell you that you will not have to watch the video to find out who the winners were. There will be an actual announcement. So anyway, 18xx rail game set in India. I've got a couple 18xx games, and every time I've played one, I've had fun, but it's not really my bag. John, John on the OCS thing, ping me over somewhere. You got ways to get a hold of me, and we can talk about it. So, I am probably not going to have the bandwidth to keep track of that conversation in this stream. No, there are no tanks. There is no CRT. In fact, I'm not even sure there are dice. So, that's that. John has just traded Iron Sky. Presumably, he means Under an Iron Sky for Beyond the Rhine, Hungarian Rhapsody, and Elusive Victory. 7 OCS games. Okay, so for 7 OCS games, that's probably a good deal. I'm really reluctant to advise people to get rid of their copy of 1985 Under an Iron Sky, because man, that thing's hard to get. And I'm not talking about just price. It seldom even comes up, which should tell you something about folks that are not getting rid of their very large, very ambitious game. So anyway, 18 India from Trax. That has made its number, by the way. Next up is Banish All Their Fears. This is Blenheim and Nirvinden. This is part of the new series called Bayonet and Musket. I believe this is a Ben Hall design. And it is a fork off of Musket and Pike. How different it will be from Musket and Pike, I don't know. And I haven't pre-ordered this either. Chances are decent I will end up finding it on my shelf at some point, regardless of whether I pre-order it or not. You can see that there are 20-minute turns. Infantry units are battalions, so quite tactical. I think we can all agree. Marty has a dim view of the 18xx genre. Jeff Beeler says designers Ben Hall and David Fox. One of the annoying things, and I may have mentioned this before, about the way GMT lays these pages out, is that it's the names of the designers are not necessarily prominent. A lot of this is, I got to kind of, okay, so here's an interview with a Spanish wargaming channel, which is El Wargamero Novato, which is a fantastic name. I think we can all agree. So I have to kind of infer, and it's in here somewhere, right? It's just not prominent. And I wish that it were prominent, because now I'm going to have to go from memory on all these rather than reading off the page to you. So this does look interesting. It's 2 battles. So when you start stacking this up with things like the Musket and Pike dual pack and the Men of Iron tri-pack and the Battles for the American Revolution Mondo sets, then this starts to look a little lean. Does this have a mounted map, I wonder? It doesn't say, so I'm going to presume that it is in fact unmounted, which is, I'm completely fine with, I have to say. John mentions it's at the very bottom of the web page, but yeah, designer Ben Hull and David Fox. And GMT rates this dead in the middle of complexity and solitaire suitability. And how accurate that is, I can't say. What I can tell you is Musket and Pike dual pack is rated 5 for complexity and 6 for solitaire suitability, where this is 5 and 5. So whatever inference you want to make from that. but I'm curious to see, where this series goes. GMT's certainly got a significant production bottleneck at this point, which is probably nobody's fault. Um, well, it might be part. Well, no, it's really nobody's fault. We'll see where they take this series. This is the kind of thing that I tend to get into because I can say, hey, I can just learn this one system and play all these different battles, and that seems very attractive to me. So I haven't ordered this, but again, Banish All Their Fears is one that is likely to show up around here at some point. Next up is Border Reavers, Anglo-Scottish border raid. This has also made its number. This is did they put the bottom designer Ed Beach? Okay, so this is the designer of the, I would say, nearly legendarily good Here I Stand. And you can see it's got wooden pieces and wooden sheep and wooden horses. This is border raids across the Anglo-Scottish border. I'm hearing good things about this. Topically, this is something that doesn't grab me, but that, of course, has no relation to whether it's good or whether I would love it if I played it. All right, I think we got all the English leaders done here now. And the color coding is not necessarily obvious on this, but this, interesting looking game. Haven't ordered it. Has made its number. I think we're going to get all the games that have made their number first up here. But like I said, I'm hearing good things about it, and there's definitely been some buzz about it already. So if you're interested in this topic, to give it a look. I can't say, maybe I should be interested in this topic after all, because I did find out in the last year or so that I am, in fact, about 1/3 Scottish. So maybe I ought to be more interested in this topic. Shocking everyone involved. All right. Commands. We're not going to talk too much about the reprints. Commands and Colors Ancients, Epic Ancients. This is basically a giant combined game, a way to play a giant combined game of Commands and Colors. There is an Ancients version. There is a Napoleonics version as well. And there is also, I don't know that it's called this, but there's also ways to do that with Memoir 44. So this is the Epic Ancients 2. So I'm visually confused by this. So this contains up to 8 players, 12 more battles, which appear to not be here for some reason. Oops. A playbook, a bunch of additional stuff, and the price is ridiculously cheap, actually. How are they even selling it for this? Does this even come in a box at that price? I'm confused. But Commands and Colors Ancients, great game. If you are that might be in James Whitmer on the Commands and Colors Napoleonics base game. I am positive that will happen, whether it is on this list or not, frankly. I like Commands and Colors a lot. I think it's an excellent light war game. It can be played easily. It's easy to teach. It is fast to play, and therefore, I think it has a lot of value. I can't speak to this particular expansion because I haven't played Epic Ancients at all. Next up is Congress of Vienna, and this is designed by. Are we at the bottom again? We are. There's a lot here. Game designer by Frank Esparago and by a system designer by Mark Herman. Now, when you look at you're going to see some graphics here. Now, this is okay. So it's called Congress of Vienna, but it starts well before the Congress of Vienna. Okay, and this is part of the Great Statesman series, which originated with the Mark Herman game. Was Churchill the first one? I believe it was. And then Mark's game Pericles, which I set up and fooled around with and absolutely did not get, despite liking Churchill a lot and taking to it very readily. The other game in the series is Versailles 1919, which is very good. This looks really interesting. If you look at the map, this is near final map, so maybe this looks better than whatever I've seen recently. It does, in fact, look a lot better than the other stuff that I've seen recently. And this will look a lot like Churchill, for those familiar with Churchill. But like Churchill, this kind of starts in I think it's 1812 is what sounds right. And but unlike Churchill, the French are one of the player positions. Whereas in Churchill, there is no German player. The game is taking the role of the Germans, and the players take the roles of the Germans, the British, and the Soviets. So in this case, though, you've got the British, the Russians, looks like the Prussians or the Habsburgs. That's got to be the Habsburgs. My eyesight is failing me here. And then the French get one. So I'm very curious to see how this ends up working. I haven't pre-ordered this. This has made its number and then some. But I am absolutely buying this. There isn't a question about that. And it is pretty close. It's in art and final development, so it's pretty close to getting done. Grand Prix, new track pack. This is a track pack for Grand Prix. Grand Prix is a game about cars. Not really my thing, so we are going to move on. Next, this is a Gene Billingsley game. This is Mr. President, the American Presidency, 2001 to 2020. And my initial, this has been in development for a long time, and it's made its big number big time. And it's quite a large game. If you look at, I don't know if we have pictures. I mean, we've got to look at the cards, man. These are some dense cards, right? You've got two, I believe it's got two maps with a lot of different displays and tracks and stuff like that. It comes in a 4-inch box. It's got it's got a full-size map and a half-size map. That sounds correct. Both of which are mounted, plus 180 cards, plus 500 plus cards, and there's a lot. This looks like there's a lot going on here, and that makes this pretty attractive. Now, this is the one that they had to raise the price on. They're honoring the P500 price, and this is again pretty close to getting published. So if you want to get this, get in on the P500 deal because they raised the regular price. This is one of those things where it was on P500 for so long that the economy completely changed between when they set the original P500 price and when they actually are gonna like send it to the printer, which is pretty soon. But they have honored those P500 prices. Another one like this was Barbarossa Army Group Center, the new printing of that, which has, it's a very comprehensive package. And you can really tell that it was on P500 for 10 years based on the ridiculously low price that it was even for P500. Roger says making the cut means nothing these days. And that's essentially true. I mean, I don't think you can really argue with this. There is a significant production bottleneck at GMT, as we all know. I'm not really going to speculate on the reasons for that because I think that is beyond the scope of the show. But it's not a secret, and I'm pretty sure they have admitted to themselves that there is in fact a significant production bottleneck. So there's an enormous number of games here that have made the cut that are not close to production. Now they've hired Kai Jensen full time. I assume full time, to help speed the development process along. When I say development here, I believe what I mean is that period between when the game is turned into GMT and it actually goes to the printer. Beyond after that, they lose. GMT doesn't have full control of it because it's in the hands of the printer, right? So this has been cooking for a long time. It looks pretty neat. I gotta say, I would like to try it before I buy it. Let me put it that way, which defeats the purpose of getting in on the P500 price, right? But it's a big, complicated looking thing, and I like that. Tim Zales says Bill mentioned that Compass is having trouble finding artists. I think that's very probable. And on the other hand, GMT has kind of got a bunch of artists with whom they have traditionally worked over the years, and I don't know how much they're leaning on that relatively small group of people. But I strongly suspect, I mean, we've seen a lot of boxes from GMT in recent years that aren't Roger McGowan boxes, and a lot of maps that aren't Mark Simonich maps. so on and so forth. So those folks are probably stretched pretty much to their limits. And we will be, in fact, talking about Mr. Simonich here very shortly. No Retreat North African Front. This is a Carl Parody game series, and I have bounced off this series, not this particular game, but I've bounced off this series fairly significantly. I've tried to play both the Italian campaign one, which looks fascinating and cool, but I couldn't really grok it trying to figure it out solitaire. And the same thing with the Russian Front one, which is the one that I still have. Now, this is a game that has, I don't know if there's a picture of it here. So you'll get a sense of that here. So you don't have like, this is one of the North Africa games, and I believe we talked about this in the North Africa games episode. That breaks the North African theater up into several different sections of disconnected maps. So for those who have a problem with that, you probably are going to have a problem with this. I don't, in principle, have a problem with that. It's aesthetically not my personal choice, but Marty Sample says that Kai is actually studying Tony Curtis's role and will eventually take over from him. Okay, we're having a hiccup problem here. Probably just need water. Okay, Kyle Reese. So this is it. This is a standard rule in OCS East Front. I mean, it's not standard as in it's in the series rules, but almost all East Front OCS games do have rules for rail conversion. I believe Hungarian Rhapsody does not, but Hungarian Rhapsody does some different things with supply. So you need it less in Hungarian Rhapsody than you might elsewhere, but you're absolutely converting rail lines in something like Third Winter or Case Blue or Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 or even Smolensk. Actually, you have to convert the rail lines. That is a thing that they had to deal with, and it's in the game. I don't know. I believe Carl pronounces it Paradise, actually, but I don't quote me on that. Dan, of course, has a random pronunciation of Carl's name. So anyway, No Retreat 2 North Africa, $52. Hasn't made its number, but it's a reprint, and reprints don't necessarily need 500 to get reprinted. Here is No Retreat, the Russian Front. This also hasn't made a number yet, but it says in art and final development, so presumably it's coming. This is, I believe, the best regarded of the No Retreat games. Now, these originated with was it Victory Point Games? I think these originated as very small Ziploc games, and they eventually made their way over to GMT. And there's been a couple of new ones in the series since then. We're going to come back to No Retreat in some additional stuff that's a little bit less familiar. But there's some really good video playthrough of this game on YouTube, by the way. It was after I tried to figure this out that I watched the video, and I'm like, oh, okay, I think I see how it works. So I'm from Ohio. I have the constitutional God-given right to mispronounce anything I want. Panzer North Africa. This is the James Day Panzer series, late of, did this come originally from Yaquinto, I believe, and then it went to Excalibur, and now it is with GMT, and this is one of a large number of expansions for this. I've steered clear of this series more or less because of ASL, as my go-to tactical World War II solution, with the caveat that I'm not really all that into tactical stuff, and I certainly don't need a million different World War II tactical games. But if you are particularly into armor tactical in World War II, and if you find the ASL handling of armor unsatisfying, and there are folks who do, and you are willing to deal with a fairly complicated game system, which this is, then maybe this is worth a look. And Panzer North Africa here. So the original games, and I want to see Yaquinto. There was Panzer, there was Armor, and there was 88. And I believe 88 was the North Africa box. So that is making you return to the series with this game for the first time in a long time. I don't know to what extent the old versions of Panzer differ from the new version. My understanding is that they differ significantly. And of course, there's tons of cards in here. Let's see, where's the 6 double-sided geomorphic map boards. So there's 12 maps in total, but there's 6. 8 counter sheets, 49 cards, 45 terrain overlays, a bunch of books, a lot of stuff. So thus the quite high for GMT regular price of 139. But again, if you're into this system, you probably already have this on order. So, and Iggy Kriegtal mentions, and I should point this out too, that the game MBT is an extension or a relative, if you will, of this system as well. That is basically modern stuff brought into the Panzer system. They're not the same, but they're related. And MBT, of course, came out back in the day from Avalon Hill too. All right, so moving on from Panzer, we have People Power, Insurgency in the Philippines, 1983 to 1986. This is a coin game by Kenneth T, who I didn't see John C here, speaking of the Philippines. But then again, I will get to meet John in just a few days at Compass Expo. So People Power, this is a coin game set in the Philippines during the 1983 to 86 insurgency. And this is, I believe this is a 4-position game. No, it is not. It is so there's a couple of coin games that aren't the traditional 4-faction coin games, and this is one of them. There are 3 factions here: the government, the NPA, and the Reformers, which is a non-violent faction, which presumably might borrow something from the non-violent factions that we see in Gandhi. And we've got some pretty cool little infographics here. It's a coin game. If you're into coin games, you're going to want this. If you're really into coin games, you're going to want this. Topically, I don't plan to order this, but this is another one that I would like to play. Coin games are common enough that I can, I can figure out how to play a coin game without necessarily having to buy the game. And at the point that I've decided it's awesome, then I will pick it up. I cannot, after all, buy everything. So, next up is Plantagenet. This is a game by Francisco Gradial, whose name I think I'm pronouncing not entirely incorrectly. And this is the Cousins War, as it's called. Yeah, so this isn't kind of the opening to the War of the Roses, and this is the Levian campaign series, by the way, which is really, really, really taken off in the development space. But unfortunately, to date, despite the like 5 or 6 Levian campaign games on P500 and the additional dozen or plus Levian campaign games in development right now, GMT has actually only managed to deliver 2 of these, Nevsky and Almoravid. So I don't remember if I've ordered this one or not because it's farther out, but it's made its number. These games are doing very well. They've been very well received in general. So very interesting medieval operational system in which you have to like raise your feudal levies and then get stuff done with the feudal levies before the feudal levies have to go home and harvest the crops, right? It's really pretty neat. It's pretty innovative. Volko Runke originated this series with Nevsky, which is, I've got both of the ones that are out so far, and I think the next one coming is Inferno, which I also have on pre-order. And I imagine we'll get to that at some point. These clearly are not the final graphics, so don't get all bent about that. Solitaire suitability high, complexity medium. I would not call this a 5 out of 9 complexity. I'd probably put it at a 4, but that's me. Tim Greenhaw just ordered Korea OCS Korea, which is very good, and which is actually a pretty good intro game to OCS. Am I misremembering that Smolensk is actually out of print now? I might be. That is possible. We learned it as Plantagenet in school, but I don't think that's a college class. I think that's a high school class. So your mileage may vary. But I do have I think all but the latest the last Levy campaign game that they put on P500 on P500. It's as close as I'm going to get. My French pronunciation is very dodgy. Okay, so this is Prime Minister. This is a pretty interesting looking game designed by Paul Hellier, whose name, again, I might be mispronouncing, has made its number. What information? We've got rules and we've got a playbook here. And this is basically you're the Prime Minister, where 1 to 5 players are politicians vying for power in Victorian England. Sounds pretty interesting. I'm not sure that the if I was gonna like pitch a game like this, I'm not sure that the Victorian period would be the period I would pick. But um, then again, the designers of this could easily know far more about this period than I do. So automated clockwork system that enables solitaire and cooperative gameplay through GMT1. That sounds intriguing. I'd be curious to see how that works exactly. Um, $52 P500 comes with a bunch of stuff. 200 poker sized cards. So 200 plus poker sized cards. That's quite a bit. And 10 tarot sized. The only problem with the tarot sized cards, because Versailles uses the tarot sized cards too, and they're really nice, but then you got to get like special sleeves for them, which is a little irritating. Unless this is going to be one of the ones that comes with its own sleeves, and some folks have actually done that. Hell, for all I know, sure. 4 out of 9 complexity, high solitaire suitability because it's got a dedicated solitaire system. Red Dust Rebellion. This is another coin game. I have not ordered this, but a whole lot of people have. This is the sci-fi coin game, and I'm actually even though I haven't pre-ordered it, I'm actually pretty excited about this. It's a really interesting opportunity to build a situation around the coin mechanics, and then see how that develops. So I'm very curious to see this design. The theme is cool. I suspect this is going to be in art and development for a while because they've shown us a lot of the cards. All the cards are going to have like original art on them. It's going to take forever to do that. Normally they can just go to an encyclopedia or public domain repository of pictures. Here's a picture of William Pitt. Great, put him on a card, right? So that they're not going to be able to do that with this. They're gonna be very reliant on original art to a much greater extent than GMT is probably used to. So so this is going to be cooking for I think quite a while. But nevertheless, I'm pretty excited about seeing this. I think this is a very promising looking game. Seas of Thunder. This is a Jeff Horger game. This is by Jeff, Charles Marr, and Neil Sobolski. I don't know the other two guys. I know Jeff. But do we have a map here? I don't see a map. There was at one point a playtest map on here. So this is like a strategic level World War II naval game. And I suspect, and I think Jeff said this, and I could be wrong, that one inspiration is the classic War at Sea. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure Jeff's familiar with that. But it's going to be a pretty big game. It's not that expensive. And it will accommodate kind of a lot of different player positions too, with the individual nations too. So, there was a playtest map on here at some point. I can't imagine that a Soviet player in this game will have much to do. But strategic level World War II naval game sounds fairly interesting. I think this is probably so like Mars Rebellion stuff is a classic staple of science fiction. Yes, we saw it in Total Recall, but we also saw it in Babylon 5. We've seen it in The Expanse. We've seen it all over the place. I mean, we saw it in the Heinlein juveniles back in the day. So, you know, it's a classic idea. I don't want to say that it resembles Total Recall specifically, particularly. There's a lot of of precedent for that theme, right? So, Seas of Thunder. Skies Above the Reich second printing. You'll notice that this is the first printing is a Charles S. Roberts Award winner, and it is a very nice cover. I believe it's nominated for best cover art. So this is a second printing. I don't know that it's going to be different, particularly other than errata and all that stuff. So a couple of different map sheets, a bunch of stuff. I've never played this. It looks interesting, but I'm just not particularly into air games. I mean, I've got a few World War II air games, and I feel like I have enough World War II air games, but nevertheless, lots of folks like this. I'd be curious to see this. I've taken a look at the Expanse, Jeff Engelstein's Expanse game from I forget who the publisher is on that because I didn't buy it, which is coin inspired, let's say. So, Skies Over the Reich second printing. We don't need to talk too much about it. It's been very popular. Tanto Monta, The Rise of Ferdinand and Isabella. This is a game in the Here I Stand family, designed by Carlos Diaz Nevarez. That is, I believe, the final color, and it is very period evocative, right down to the Habsburg jaw. So, I'd be very surprised if this didn't turn out to be excellent, to be honest. So I think there are reasonable things you can say to the disfavor of Here I Stand specifically, and to a lesser extent of the Virgin Queen, both of which I've played. But it's nevertheless, especially if you get like 6 players who are into it, you're going to have a great time in Here I Stand. And I think this is almost certain to be almost exactly the same thing. And you've got like here's an Africa map, for example. So very curious to see this. I haven't ordered it. More than made its number in art and final development, so it's coming at some point. I do like the cover, by the way, just so we're clear on that. So this is the problem with Here I Stand, is that it is a 6-player game that is awesome. But it takes 6 to 8 hours to play, so you got to get 6 people to sit around for 6 to 8 hours. You can play it with 3 people. It's noticeably less satisfying with 3 people. There is a 2-player option, which I still have not played, so I don't know how good it is, but I can't imagine that it's as good as the 6-player version. So you flatly do not want to play it with 4 or 5 players. It does not work well with 4 or 5 players. So that's kind of the big problem with Here I Stand is that, and the fact that not all the factions are necessarily interesting to a given player. I find a couple of those factions really interesting and a couple of those factions really boring. So if I end up saddled with, say, the French, I think the French are pretty boring in that game. Other people disagree, by the way, and enjoy playing the French or the Austrians, but I didn't. So if you are playing a power that you're into and everybody else is playing a power that you're into, then it's great. It's really fantastic. All right, The Barracks Emperors, designed by Brad Johnson and Ray Farrell. Ray Farrell is the fella behind the Time of Crisis. I was about to call it that Crisis of the Third Century game. This has made its number as well. I'm told unofficially the real number is closer to 600 or 700 now, by the way. But this is probably another lightish war game dealing with, and it certainly looks pretty abstract, dealing with the time of the Barracks Emperors, which is, again, a historically interesting period, and one like Time of Crisis. There's really not many games on the Crisis of the Third Century. So this Time of the Barracks Emperors, there's also not really many, if any, games on this at all. So this looks super abstract to me, and maybe I'm not into it for that reason. But nevertheless, if you have an interest in Roman history specifically, then I think this is probably worth a look. And the P500 price is certainly cheap. So Carl says he likes playing France, and Here I Stand. That's great. That is great. I like playing the English and the Protestants. Um, and the Turks are okay. But the French and the Habsburgs, I did not enjoy playing. So yes, that means I have played it multiple times. Here is the British way. So this is the first in what might maybe the last. This is a coin quad. This is 4 different coin games about decolonization of the British Empire. And the 4 periods here are Kenya. Uh, doesn't give me dates on those, and I don't know these well enough to tell you. Malaya, um, damn it, Cyprus and Palestine. And I think that's it. So you get like these 4 coin mini games. This is fairly interesting looking, I gotta say. And certainly, if you want to like combine this with your game of Gandhi to sort of do the magnum opus of British decolonization, you can absolutely do that. So pretty interesting looking thing. Um, I'll probably end up with this. I don't know if this is the final cover or not. I rather hope it is not because I don't like it, but it doesn't really matter. I'll probably end up with this one. Hun644 says that Homo Ludens has a playthrough of Palestine. That's Fred Serval's YouTube channel. By all means, and you're right, he does have some playthrough of this. And I think he's working his way through all of it as well. I don't know if he's working his way through all of it on video or not. But that was something I suggested to Fred. It was to, hey, put Gandhi with that too and get like a giant game of Gandhi going, which is a coin game that I still haven't played, by the way. This is fair too. Actually, you start the whole process with liberty or death, I suppose. This is quite correct. They're called the Habsburgs in Virgin Queen, not Here I Stand. But there's not. It's not. The 2 games are very similar, but not identical. There's enough differences in them to confuse you. Next up is the Plum Island Horror. This is a sort of when I asked Herman about this, he got a little squirrely on exactly when the inspiration is. But to me, this screams like the Blob style classic movie pulp horror. That's kind of the theme of the game. It's a Herman Lutman game. It's made its number. I'm sure it will be along presently. It's got cards. It's got a board. It's got a bunch of other stuff. It's not really my bag as a non-historical thing, but there you go. I am again, I'd be surprised if this one didn't end up being fun for those who are into it. I would just be crabby about it. This is the Weimar Republic. This is a very interesting looking game. Designed by Gunnar Holmbeek, I believe. Do we have any real information on this at all? Because it kind of doesn't look like it. Well, here's what is clearly a playtest map picture on BGG. So go check this out on BGG if you're interested. Here's some other stuff. This looks like it's inspired by Coin. It looks like it's inspired by the Great Statesman games. This is a pretty, and it's an interesting situation as well. So this is another one that I haven't pre-ordered. It has made its number and then some. But I am pretty interested in this one. So I don't forget to mention this, by the way. There's a new link to the Discord server. There are reasons why I can't just put a link in the video description. There's a link to the Discord server if you want to join the Ardwulf Lair Discord server. I got a bunch of new people after last week. It is in the ticker. If anybody wants to email me, that is in the ticker. If anybody wants to go vote for the CSRs, all those links are in the video description. So check all that stuff out. All right. So the Weimar Republic. This looks pretty interesting. Topically, I think this is interesting. So again, good chance I'll end up with that in my hands. Vijayanagara. My pronunciation of that is very uncertain. This is a coin game, although it says coin inspired. I've seen the map. And it definitely looks coin inspired, but maybe not 100% coin. This is a game about the Deccan empires in India. Obviously, very underserved topic, but a very interesting period. I'm pretty interested in this. This was a Oh, I forget whether this was like a candidate for the Zenobia Award or came out of the Consim Game Jam or maybe both. But this looks pretty interesting, and it's one of I don't know 10 coin games that they have on P500 right now that they're having trouble getting out. So this is another one. It's probably going to end up in my on my shelf at some point. There's a lot of information on here. Does it say how big the box is? Well, it does have a mounted map. If this isn't in a 3-inch box, I'll be irritated. So Kevin says that this came out of Constant Game Jam, and that sounds right to me. I just didn't want to eliminate the possibility that I was wrong about it. All right, Wolf Pack, North Atlantic Convoy Struggles. This is a game from Mike Berticelli. This is there's not a whole lot of info. Well, that's not really true anymore. It's been a while since I've looked at this. So this looks like a fairly noodly card-driven system to manage um, simulating the submarine war, and that's a pretty interesting topic. It's a topic that at this point is fairly thoroughly covered, so I'm real curious to see what Mike can bring to this game. It does say that the heart of Wolfpack is in its campaign system. That's potentially very intriguing right there. 3-inch box, mounted map board, submarine player boards, four submarine player boards. So it sounds like it is a up to 4-player game, which that gives it a leg up over something like the Hunters, which is fantastic, but it is a single player game. There's ways to run it with multiple people, but this does look pretty cool. All right, 1833 NE by Tom Lehman. This is another rail game in the 18xx genre, and it is railroading in New England. Once again, my excitement about this is a bit limited, but every time I've played one of these, I have actually enjoyed it. Um, so I don't know that I have much more to say about 1833 NE. It's a coin. It's not a coin game. It's an 18xx game. This is a genre that GMT seems to be trying pretty hard to break into, and certainly it is popular. I see people playing it at Origins every single year. And like I said, I haven't played a lot of them, but every time I have played one, I have enjoyed it. It's noodly in a way that appeals to me. Uh, a I'm not sure if it's guest. I would be inclined to pronounce it guest, a guest of Robin Hood, but I could be wrong, and it could be jest. Um, this is a game from Fred Serval. This is going to be the follow up to his CSR award nominated Red Flag Over Paris, and it's a game about Robin Hood. And I don't think it uses the same system at all, but I believe it to be a small game. Um, so this is it's an ideal entry point to the coin system and the ICS series. What is the ICS series? Somebody is going to know and put it in the chat. And $50. This is a completely reasonable statement. So, guest of Robin Hood, I've got the Robin Hood supplement for Rollmaster. Is the only Robin Hood product I have. I like this cover. I got to say that. I don't know if this is the cover art or not. My guess would be that it isn't. The Irregular Conflict. I wasn't aware that was a whole series, though. Apparently, I'm full of shit. So let's look. So, this explains why I didn't know what it is because none of these are out yet. Guest of Robin Hood, Cross Bronx Expressway, and Vijaya Nagara. So that would explain that. And that does sort of explain the coin linkage as well. So Meandering Mike says it's geste. I mean, if it's French, which it could be, then maybe. I don't know. I should ask. I should ask Fred. He's the designer. He ought to know. And he lives in the UK, so you could believe they'll correct him if he pronounces it incorrectly. But in any case, looks like a small, fun game. If you're interested in this topic, this is Battles of the American Revolution Tri-Pack number 2, containing Monmouth, Germantown, and Newtown. Newtown's not even that old, and this is getting the deluxe treatment with a big box and mounted maps and all that jazz. I ordered this on day one. I'll be delighted to have this. It is going to have at least a couple Orascani. I'm not sure that's being pronounced correctly either. Um, like the first American Revolution tri-pack, this has sort of a bonus battle in it that came with Newtown. Um, so yeah, I ordered this on day one. I'm totally buying this. I'm all about these like big value added packages with a bunch of different battles or scenarios or whatever. And this is the Battles of the American Revolution series. It's well regarded series. It's pretty easy to play. There are people who vocally don't like it, but I think it's at least okay, and it certainly fits my level of interest in the tactical or grand tactical, if you want, uh, treatment of this topic. Let me put it that way. I know what it is. I just am not sure whether it's a hard G or a soft G or a French G. So, nevertheless, Baltic Empires, the Northern Wars of 1558 to 1721, 2 to 5 players. We do have a game map here, and if I'm not mistaken, this is, I want to say this is a different map than last time I looked at this. But this should give you a sense of what this thing's all about. So think Great Northern War, which I think is in this period, and other conflicts between folks like Brandenburg slash Prussia, and Sweden and Russia, and probably Poland, Lithuania. So um, so interesting topic. Not a game that is heavily covered. Game designed by Brian Ashley. Am I reading that correctly? Brian Asklev. So no, I'm not. I'm not, in fact, reading that correctly. But yeah, card-driven game. Area map looks pretty interesting. Maybe try this at some point. I would be happy to try it. Doug mentions that this ends with the Great Northern War and does cover the 30 Years' War, which of course is, you get Gustavus Adolphus and all that fancy Swedish stuff. Okay, so Barbarossa Army Group North. We're going to see 2 of these on this list. These have been on P500 for well over a decade. Barbarossa Army Group North, South, and Center. New printings of the 3, and we just got Center earlier this year. It is a very nice package. I think this is a good game system. I am very pleased to have gotten it, but now they've got to come through with the remaining games in the series. Orders to date are over 1,000. You could see that $70 is high for as long as ago as this was, but it's got what looks like 3 counter sheets. It's got 5 maps. It's loaded with content. There's going to be there's all these games have tons of player aids and stuff like that, mini maps and all that stuff. So I've never questioned whether I was getting my value out of this or not. I've got all the games in the series. Okay. I had all of them but Army Group Center, and I got Army Group Center when it came back out, or in January or February or whenever that was. It's a very nice package. There are enough rule changes that I think you'd have problems trying to backfit the new rules to the old stuff. Not to say it's impossible. I don't know that it's impossible, but I think it would be a hassle, and I wouldn't bother with it until the new versions come out, or I would just play Army Group Center, which contains plenty of content. Um, so I'd like to see this series take off again. I feel like this series really kind of vanished in the popular sort of wargaming consciousness, in large part because all the games were out of print for a long time, and nobody seemed to be interested in it anymore because these games have been sitting on P500 for years and years. So I'd love to see GMT push these forward. I don't know that GMT is the problem here, but I would like to see these come back. And just as fast as Vance wants to do them, that would be great. Here's Army Group South. I actually feel like, in a lot of ways, Army Group South is the most. I split the difference on this as to whether I think the Army Group South situation is more interesting or the Army Group North situation is more interesting. I think you can make the case either way. Um, I think I'd be inclined to say Army Group South, though, to be honest. And again, $60 P500. Now, I had these on P500. I dropped them. I put them back on. I dropped them again. And then when Army Group Center looked like it was actually coming, I put that back on and did get the P500 for that. So when these get closer, I will 100% reorder these. Not a problem at all. Um, well, I don't disagree with this, but I don't know that GMT's the holdup. I have a feeling that the designer is and or the designer's team is the holdup. So I wouldn't object to this, but if GMT's these were stuck before all this extra stuff got stuck at GMT. Let me put it that way. All right, Bear's Claw, for some reason, picture unavailable. So this is two games in one, standalone operational level treatments of the July to August 1941. Okay, and pretty nice looking counters, I think. Is this a reprint of an earlier game? Game designed by it is game designed by Masahiro Yamazaki. So this is a redesign of a Japanese game. This is a Consim Press item, however, and I think that the Consim Press stuff seems to be in a wee bit of limbo, as we've seen with the very highly ordered Russian campaign. See, this is my understanding, and if I want Vance to be happy about it too. So, I like the look of these counters. I got to tell you, I like the look of the map. So I'm not sure why this just kind of slipped out of my radar. I suspect I looked at it and then said, "Oh, this looks cool," and then I forgot about it because it's been sitting around forever. But this looks very interesting, and I'd like to see it actually come out. And this is one that I absolutely think maybe somebody else picks this up if GMT is really if GMT is, let me put it this way, if GMT is unable to bring it to market. Buy swords and bayonets. Tune in tomorrow on Dan's stream. This is our good friend Stigler's contribution, one of his contributions to the great battles of the American Civil War system. We have completely given up clip encounters at this point, by the way. I'm going to need you. You see the number of tabs that are open here. I'm going to need the time. Alan Salazar, welcome. I am positive that this is in fact the case at least some of the time. Let me put it that way. In any case, this is pretty much ready to go. This is a set of 4 small battles using the Great Battles of the American Civil War system, which is the game system that I like a lot. This was a day one order for me as well. The battles in question are Big Bethel, Mill Springs, New Bern, and Rappahannock Station. Big Bethel and Mill Springs I've heard of, and Rappahannock Station I've always kind of heard about that in other context. Um, New Bern I have really no real insight on at all. So these are interesting looking battles. Big Bethel's one of the very early battles, right? So it's one of the in this box. No, there's no miniatures in this box. You heathen. But in any event, nice looking map. Even though this isn't the final map, you can tell it's not the final map. Designer Alan Dickerson, game developer Bill Byrne. Looks great. I can't wait to get this. $38 is a bargain. Commands and Colors Medieval Crusades expansion number 1. I don't own. Now I like Commands and Colors. I don't own Commands and Colors Medieval. I do feel like the choice to do Byzantine battles in the original release was a bit of an odd choice, but then again, there's a lot less coverage of Byzantine battles than there are on of yet another Agincourt or Krejci game. So decent choice. I feel like at this point my need for medieval tactical stuff is satiated by Men of Iron. This is absolutely true too. So, all right. So moving on from Commands and Colors Medieval, it's certainly a nice package. It's a great system. I don't need it. I've got enough commands and colors that I don't need medieval to. CDG solo pack system pack number 2. This is our good friend Stuka Joe his solo system, originally designed for Paths of Glory, and which was already extended to a bunch of other things, and which GMT is like officially picked up as part of GMT1. So this is designed by Stuka Joe and Ken Kuhn, and the games included here are Pursuit of Glory, Commands and Colors Medieval, 1960 Making of a President, Barbarossa to Berlin, Commands and Colors Napoleonics, and Wilderness War. So I'd play Pursuit of Glory, although I don't own it. I love Paths of Glory. I certainly would play Commands and Colors Napoleonics. I wouldn't mind trying 1960 Making of the President, and I'd like to play Wilderness War. So I am like in the space covered by these games necessarily, but they're all games that I don't feel like I would need a solitaire system to get played. Here's a bunch of stuff. This is the first one. This system seems to work well, so it adds uncertainty to a type of game that needs uncertainty to function correctly. It's a different kind of uncertainty, but it still works. So worth a look if you're interested in solo stuff for any of those games, and it is only $14. It will probably cost more than $14 to ship it to you, but that's not GMT's fault either. China's War, 37 to 41. So this is a game. This is designed by Brian Train, and it's a coin game, and it is on the Second Sino-Japanese War, or at least part of it. I had this on pre-order, and I ended up dropping it because I was a bit concerned about how the factions were going to work, and the fact that it cuts off in 1941. There may be good reasons for that, but that made it somewhat less attractive to me. I may reorder this. This is a topic I'm super interested in. This has 1,500 pre-orders. It's coming at some point, but you see that it's not an art and final development, so it's coming when it's coming. I will have plenty of time to make up my mind as to whether this is not the cover. This is one of those like stock cards that GMT puts together when they announce the pre-order. This is, and you can tell because it's got big P500 on it. So interesting looking game, interesting topic. I don't know if I'm going to be happy with it or not. There are certainly, as it gets closer, I'd imagine we'll hear more about it. So, second printing Comancheria. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. This is a Joel Toppin game. This game is very well regarded. Take a quick look at the map. Ironic that I get better pictures on BGG than I do on GMT's website. But you can see this is a game about it's a Native American topic. Rise and fall of the Comanche Empire, 1700 to 1875. This game is very well regarded. I really don't know anything about it, so I can't really speak to it. But it is very well regarded. Here's a second printing for a very reasonable price. The second printing has made the cut. Sometimes second printings have trouble making the cut. All right, so this is Commands and Colors Napoleonics expansion number 7, and this is more or less the one that folks that are super into Commands and Colors Napoleonics, and by that I mean Jim Ozarski, have been really pining for the Grand Battles expansion. So this is basically supersized Napoleonic battles. I'll of course buy this. I don't know if I have this on pre-order or not. I'm pretty sure I do. But I'll absolutely buy it. Made the cut. God knows when it's coming out. Richard Borg design, of course, 10 epic battle scenarios, 2 Le Grand Battle extended scenarios. 10 other Legrand battle scenarios. There's a lot of scenarios in here. Now, bear in mind, though, that the scale of Commands and Colors is somewhat abstract, right? So the game's always about the same size, more or less. But the battle might be big or the battle might be small. So what we see a lot of is things like, here's a part of Waterloo, for example. In a lot of the like, say, the British, this is in the core box, I believe, because it's British versus French, where you've got the attack on the fortified manor house at Hougoumont. Let's get some water here. So we needed the Prussian box to give us all of Waterloo, right? But then, of course, you're fitting all of Waterloo on this small map, and it feels weird. Whereas with the Grand Battle stuff, it really kind of blows it up. You get a lot of detail, you get a lot more stuff. So very much looking forward to these. Not particularly expensive. What's all in this thing? Rules, tons and tons of cards, victory banners, square counters, garrison markers, French Allied markers, more of the individual special ability markers, a bunch of more blocks, all that stuff. So tons of stuff. It'll be great. Cross Bronx Expressway. So this is a game designed by Non-Breaking Space, and this is another one of those things. I'm not sure if this is an individual or a group or what. And this was another one. It's like, oh, it's a road building game. I don't know. Who cares, right? I don't want that. But listening to some talk about this is a game about urban development in general and the different political interplay that goes around urban development. This looks fascinating. I haven't pre-ordered this, but I will totally buy this. Again, status made the cut, so it's probably not coming out in 2024. I'd be pleased to be wrong, but probably not. But this looks really, really interesting, and I'm actually very excited to see more about this. There's a video trailer, but the video trailer doesn't tell you that much. Go watch that if you want. This is what I'm super excited about. I'm pretty sure I have this on pre-order. In fact, I definitely have this on pre-order too. This is a game by Francisco Gradial called Cuius Regio, the 30 Years War. It's got a near final art. I'm going to show you this map. I saw somebody complain about this map, and I'm like, man, are you crazy? This thing looks great. I really, really like this map. And it's a game on a hex grid. What is not to like on here? So I'm very excited about this, and this is another made the cut. But who knows when it's coming? I would imagine it's not coming all that soon, but I'm pretty excited about it whenever it shows up. I think that map is great. Now, the playtest counters graphics are not final, and you can tell these are obviously not final art. So, but the map is near final, and it's really attractive. Downfall, Conquest of the Third Reich, 1942 to 1945. So I just started really kind of hearing about this in a little more detail lately, and I think that's thanks to Harold's podcast with John Butterfield. So this was a design that Chad Jensen had cooking when he passed, and it got passed to John Butterfield to complete. And there was a lot of challenge around that. This game uses the game map, not final art, but again, I believe this to be pretty close. It is a game on a hex grid, right? It starts in, I believe, 1942 and runs to the end of the war. And it is a game in which it's a two-player game in which one player plays the Western Allies and the Germans facing the Soviets. The other player plays the Soviets and the Germans facing the Western Allies. So right there, that's the classic Battle for Germany, Jim Dunnigan shtick. Okay. But hearing more about this, there's some other pretty interesting looking things going on here as well. And I'm pretty curious to see how this thing turns out. I haven't pre-ordered it yet. Whoops, sorry if that made a lot of noise. Haven't pre-ordered it yet. But this is likely to show up on my shelf at some point. Expansion or Extinction, a Triumphant Tragedy series game designed by Stuart Pierce, system designed by Craig Basink. So this is Triumph and Tragedy in Space. That sounds fun. I probably will buy this. I haven't pre-ordered this yet, but I'll probably buy this. I think Triumph and Tragedy is terrific, and if it is transposed to a completely fictional setting, then I'm even happier. So I'm very likely, I haven't ordered it yet, but I'm very likely to actually pre-order. I have a lot on pre-order at GMT, as we will continue to see as we go here. All right, Fields of Fire Deluxe Edition. This is a new edition of the original Fields of Fire, which a lot of people really liked, and a lot of other people really struggled with the rule book. So this has the new rule book in it, which I believe you can download now. The this P500, I mean, I left stuff out. This isn't even everything. We are an hour and 16 minutes in. I've clipped 150 counters, and I got to stay laser focused on this, or we're not going to get done. For those who heard bad things about the rule book, this is a solitaire system, by the way. And it picks an infantry regiment, the 9th Infantry Regiment in World War 9th Infantry Regiment in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So you get a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of play value here, assuming you can figure it out from the rule book. The new rule book is supposed to be quite a lot better. So go check that out if you want. This is the 3rd edition draft. That was updated just very recently. So this rule book ought to be a significant improvement over the original rule book. I have the original. I'm not going to buy this, but I'm not throwing the original away either. If I want to play it, I'll re-download the rule book. Rewritten series rulebook, starter guide, full starter mission, 3 fully redesigned mission books, 200 updated counters, new elevation card, 3-inch box, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be real nice for those who really like this system and who got frustrated by the previous edition. Next up is For the People, 4th printing. I don't really need to sell anybody on this, do I? This ID Jester, thanks for stopping by. And Hissy Cat Studios. Yes, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. We are probably less than halfway through all this. I obviously got to move faster. All right, so hopefully I don't have to sell you on For the People. It is a magnificent game. It's a Mark Herman game, card-driven game, point-to-point map. Great game, rich with historical flavor and strategy and all that stuff. Highly recommended. France 40. I do have this on pre-order. This is a Mark Simonich game. This is in his loose Zoc Bond series. We'll get back to that in a second. This has hit its number and then some as well. This would be a reprint. This is, I want to say, the only one of these I don't have. That's not true. I don't have Ukraine 43 either. But this is, other than Ukraine 43, this is the only one that I don't have. And it's an interesting looking game on a difficult topic. And I say difficult topic in this sense that it's a hard topic. The campaign in France in 1940 is a hard topic for war games to simulate. I'm very curious to see what Simonich has done with this. These games are generally, that aside, these games are generally really good, highly playable, not too complicated. Ukraine 43 does need a reprint. I completely agree. Great Battles of Alexander expanded deluxe 2nd printing. Okay, so the last, as I recall, the last printing of Great Battles of Alexander, which is called Great Battles of Alexander Expanded Deluxe, The Macedonian Art of War. Wow. Okay, so that aside, I believe the last version of this did not include the Tyrant expansion. This printing will include the Tyrant expansion. Why the last one didn't, I don't know. It was already out of print at the time. I got the Tyrant expansion. Thank you, Enterprise Games. But so I don't really need this, but this includes all the expansions. There's a lot of battles in Tyrant too. And that's the Tyrants of Syracuse, by the way. So this is a great series. I love this series. You can play all this with simple GBOH if you want. I don't. And it's a huge value pack. This is going to have something like, I'm doing this from memory, something like 28 battles in it, something like that, all over the ancient Greek world. So highly recommended, tons of value in it. I think the series is worth taking the extra time it will take to learn it. Henry, the Agincourt Campaign, 1315. This is a game design by Joe Schmidt, and once again, it is in the Levian campaign series. Part of the GMT bottlenecked Levian campaign series. Voca Runke system. Do we have we just have some mats here. There's no sense in digging. There's a map. Obviously, these are playtest. These are playtest graphics, right? Not final art. We have to say that because people will complain otherwise. This is Hubris, Twilight of the Hellenistic World. This is a game designed by Morgan Guton Reddy, whose name I probably just destroyed. This looks really neat. This is not final art. Definitely not. This is basically successors. But point-to-point map, card-driven game, looks very interesting. I'm highly interested in this. So I believe I do have this one on order. Jeff Beeler says he's not a fan of the way that BEF is depicted in France 40. Like I said, it's a difficult topic. It's a hard topic to simulate. So hubris or hubris. I always wanted to pronounce it hubris, but everybody seems to pronounce it hubris. This is I Napoleon, designed by Ted Racer. This is a very interesting looking game. Ted actually describes this as a role-playing game. I believe Ted is wrong about that, but it nevertheless appears to be a very interesting looking game, and which does have some role-playing aspect to it. Very interested in looking at this. I believe this is a solitaire game. If I'm recalling correctly, indeed it is. Yearly turns, 220 cards. There's a board. Do we have a board? Here's the board. It's the prototype. Again, not final art. But I'm real interested in, you're kind of following the career of Napoleon here. So very interesting looking game. I am going to pick this up whenever it becomes available. And I once again made the cut. Nobody knows when it'll come out. In the Shadows, French Resistance, designed by Dan Bullock, Chris Bennett, and Joe Schmidt. Mr. Bullock is responsible for No Motherland Without, the game from Compass that came out, I want to say in 2020, a game about North Korea, which is a game really not much else like that. Very interesting looking game, and I think that is what makes me interested in this, rather than any pre-existing interest I may have had in the French resistance against the Nazi occupiers. Not that that's not interesting. It's just like, I don't know. Not super hot on it. But this game, because of Bullock's involvement, that's what makes me pay attention to this. Okay, so Andrew Atkin, hubris in English, and Hubris in French. But Morgan is French, so maybe I should pronounce it the way she pronounces it. And of course, it is originally Greek, but no one involved in the conversation is Greek. Although we've got some Greek patrons, so I shouldn't say that. But Liberty or Death. I have sometimes described this. I waffle back and forth on this. I've played about 6 or 7 coin games. Okay, there's more than that. But I sometimes say that Liberty or Death is my favorite, and this is a Harold Buchanan game. And I sometimes say that Pendragon is my favorite coin game. And lately, I've been leaning in the direction of Pendragon, and that is Morgan's game. So if you don't mind coin, I know some folks don't like it, and that's fine. But if you do like coin and you're interested in the American Revolution, I think this is a pretty good American Revolution game. I don't necessarily think that it is the definitive game on the American Revolution. I felt they needed to go pick up a couple of other things, including but not limited to 1776. So, but nevertheless, I do have a very high opinion of this game, and I do own it. Next word, Taiwan, 2nd edition. Don't need that. Got it already. No Retreat, the Western Front, 1944 to 1945. We're curious to, yeah, so this has made the cut. This is West Front, No Retreat. I'm pretty interested in this, actually. We've got an invasion game and a front game, which are kind of in 2 separate parts. This looks really interesting. Is this Carl's design? I imagine it is. It is. This sounds pretty interesting, and I'm very curious to see what Carl is going to do with this. I don't know. Um, so yes, this is basically true. I don't know when this is coming out. I know it made the cut a while ago, and it's again just made the cut, so nobody knows when it's coming. But I'm very interested in seeing this. This is the most promising for me, the most interesting looking of the various no retreat projects that are on this list. Men of Iron Volume 5, Norman Conquests, game designed by Ralph Shelton. Ralph, thank you for keeping this series going after the untimely passing of the legendary Richard Berg. This is a great series. It's medieval battles. It works great. It's easy to play. I'm very happy that we are going to get a fifth volume in this series. And this is going to have, once again, a bunch of battles in it. Civitate, Fulford, Stamford Bridge, Hastings, Tinchebrai, don't know if that's being pronounced correctly. Lewis, Evesham. These are English names. I could be mangling all of these. The only one I'm confident in is Stamford Bridge. And Civitate, I'm pronouncing it as though it were Latin, which is probably not accurate. Actually, it might be since it's Normans in Sicily. But this looks great. 9/16 counters. Is there a components list here? I don't see that. This has made its number. I'll be delighted to give GMT money for this whenever it comes out. All right, next up, North Africa 41. Now, this is a Mark Simonich game, and it certainly is being sort of branded as though it were in the Zach Bond series. But what this actually is a oh wow, that's nice. What this actually is a new version of his older, very older game, The Legend Begins, which was produced through some small publisher, might have been Panther Games or Quarterdeck or somebody like that. Um, this does not actually use the Zach Bond mechanic, but I believe that he is updating a bunch of stuff here. I feel like I've got enough North Africa games, frankly, but I'm going to buy this. This is a good looking game, $42. Two maps, one of which is full size, one of which is pretty close to full size. This runs, let's see, Rommel's first offensive in March 41 to December 41. Okay. So redo of old designs, The Legend Begins, published by Rhino. Okay, there you go. Everything has been redone. It also improved rules using many of the ideas developed in Stalingrad 43, Holland 44, and Salerno 43. Great. Happy to buy this. This is this is one that I will totally buy and play. Pursuit of Glory, the Great War in the Near East, and a fellow who looks suspiciously like Peter O'Toole. Although Peter O'Toole looks suspiciously like Lawrence of Arabia. So this is supposed to be really good. It's based on the Passive Glory system, as you can imagine. I should probably buy this. This is a second edition. It has made its number. This will include a mounted board. I believe the original printing was an unmounted map. I also believe that the original printing had some significant errata problems. I might be misremembering that. But this is supposed to be really good. Is there a picture of it? Final proof map at 1.3 megs. Oh yeah, look at that. So point-to-point map, card-driven game, traditional Herman-esque card-driven mechanic here. Yeah, I'm gonna need this. Rebel Fury. This is very interesting looking, actually. So a few years ago, Mark Herman did a game in C3I magazine called Gettysburg, and I got it. I fooled with it. I didn't like it. And what I didn't like about it was that based on the scale of the game, the physical scale of the game, as far as how big the map is, the number of pieces and stuff like that, that combined with the scale that it was depicting in the battle made it seem unsatisfying to me. Then approximately a year later, Mark did another game using basically the same system, called Waterloo, or the Waterloo Campaign, also in C3I magazine. And I got that too. And I was like, wow, I like this way better. And the reason why is it's basically the same system, but it takes a step back in scale and gives you a wider view. So you're getting the campaign rather than the battle. I really like that. Now, what Rebel Fury here is 5 battles, which include, it's, isn't it here somewhere? Oh, tell me it's here. Um, okay. The battles are Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Missionary Ridge, Chancellorsville, and Fredericksburg. And Fredericksburg is solitaire, which is not a bad choice. Several battles are linkable, so you can do Chickamauga and Chattanooga, which makes sense. And Chattanooga is something that doesn't get simulated all that often either. So I am pretty now. I'd also heard that Rick Barber was doing the maps, and then Rick Barber passed away. So I don't know where the maps landed on that. I don't know how far he got on it. But this is also going to be highly portable. The whole thing's going to have uh, 260 counters, and it's got 5 battles, so you can kind of do your own math on that. There's not many markers in this system either. This is made the cut, so nobody knows when it's coming out. But I am, and it's being sold as Volume 1 of the Civil War Heritage series. That's great. But I don't know when the Cairo is. We're talking about Cairo, Illinois, or Cairo, Kentucky. Cairo, Ohio, I have no idea. But I've always heard it pronounced Cairo. Um, so this is a reasonable statement. I think you certainly can't tell the Egyptians how to pronounce it, but they probably don't pronounce it Cairo either. So yeah, Civil War, cool. This system sort of stepping back and giving you more of a campaign level look. Yeah, I'll probably buy this too. Red Winter Expanded New Edition. This has this has made the cut. Expanded the game to include an additional battle. Otherwise, it's going to be the same as the earlier edition. What else do we got here? Is this mounted map? It appears not. This is a very well-regarded game, by the way. This is by Mark Mazicki. There's another game in this series too, with the name of which escapes me at the moment. But this is a very well-regarded game, and I'm a little surprised that, and I don't know why. Maybe there's reasons that we don't have like 4 or 5 games in this series so far. We only have 2. Very well regarded game. Russo Finnish War, of course. Sovereign of Discord. This is an expansion for Fire in the Lake. This is the pre Fire in the Lake expansion. We already have the post Fire in the Lake expansion in Fall of Saigon. So if we combine this with Fall of Saigon and Fire in the Lake, we get to play from about 1960, I believe 1965, all the way to about 1975. I have ordered this. I like Fire in the Lake a lot. So if you're into Fire in the Lake, you'd probably want this. Space Empires, all good things. Great title. Obviously, we all know where that came from. This is the final expansion for Space Empires, and I can't wait for this to come out. I have no idea when it's coming out. It's going to have a whole bunch of new stuff. I've also felt like all Operation Dauntless is the other game in that series, by the way. So I've felt like I really like the expansions for Space Empires, because I don't feel like they're the kind of expansions that bloat the game beyond recognition, and I have often felt like that. So I'll buy this. This is on pre-order. Whenever it comes out, I'll buy it. Shut up and take my money. The Battle for Normandy Deluxe Edition. So, now somebody is going to complain at some point, either here in the chat or in the comments or later on or on Twitter or whatever, and say this isn't really a deluxe edition because it doesn't have mounted maps. It's got 7 maps, man. You want 7 mounted maps? Mount them yourself. Really. Um, 11 counter sheets, 7 map sheets. This includes so this is basically Battle for Normandy plus the expansion, plus all the revisions, plus some minor tweaks and tuning. This is a very good game. It's what is the price? $105, frankly, I think is a steal for 7 maps and 11 counter sheets. That's a $250 game from anybody else. I mean, I don't, it's debatable whether you need the expansion. It's just nice for the scenarios and then updated rule book. Um, yeah, I mean, nobody's going to have, nobody except Whiff has 7 mounted maps. Okay. I ordered some Whiff stuff, which probably be here when I get, well, probably be here when I get back from Compass Expo. So this again, I've got some video on this. Go check that out if you're interested. This is a very good game. It's not necessarily my favorite Normandy game, but I think it's a very credible game, and one of relatively few games at this scale that cover this campaign. I suspect that you need 4 banquet tables. Yeah, I think that sounds right. The Bell of Treason, 1938 Munich Crisis in Czechoslovakia. This is a game designed by somebody whose name I can't read, by Peter Mojish. Sorry, Mr. Game Designer. I don't believe I'm competent to pronounce that. This is a game about the crisis, the Czechoslovakia crisis, the Munich crisis, the Munich crisis, or I forget what the name was. But it's an interesting topic. I don't feel like I need this, but I probably will get talked out of it at some point. Here's the prototype. It looks very abstract, which you'd expect for a topic like this. But I don't know. I'm lukewarm on this particular one. I got to tell you, it's probably going to be good. It's hypothetical. Well, I guess it's really not. No, it's really not at all. There's a number of games about like hypothetical Czech resistance to the German occupation, and this is not that. And I think I'm conflating it with that. I'm still kind of lukewarm on it. Last 100 Yards, Volume 4, The Russian Front. This is probably what I really need to try. Last 100 Yards, by the way. This is probably the thing that the Last 100 Yards folks have been waiting for. This finally adds East Front to that system. That system has some very interesting looking things. I'm really curious to try it. I just haven't had the chance, and I don't own any of them. So John, I heard that they were working on that, and then somebody else told me that no, that's wrong, and then somebody else told me that no, that's right. I have no idea. If I'll go with whatever Marty Sample says on this, because he's in touch with those NES folks. All right. Peter Schief, I think the game you're talking about is On to Richmond 2 from MMP. I don't expect that till at least mid 2023. I will tell you that. Somebody was saying, "Oh, it's got to ship soon, right?" Because it did make its number really quickly. But no, there's no way they're making 2022 at this point. The Pure Land, the Onin War in Muromachi, Japan, 1465 to 1477. It would be an understatement to say that I have no idea what any of those words mean. I have no knowledge of this whatsoever. But it's a coin game. It is a civil war in 15th century Japan. That is a coin game. So I guess from the standpoint of, hey, let's learn about this new period that I can then buy a bunch of games on. Although I don't think I'm going to get buried in games on this particular period. I'm not really that into Japanese history or Japanese topics. I know a lot of people who are, and that's fine. I have the 2 Great Battles of History volumes on feudal Japan. And I've looked at that game from Hexasim, which is gorgeous, by the way. that is, I believe, a tactical thing. And I don't have Sekigahara. I should probably try Sekigahara. So I can't really tell you about much about this. It's a coin game. It's set in 15th century Japan. It's probably going to be interesting for those interested in the topic. This I'm super interested in. Triumvir, Caesar Pompey Crassus versus the Roman Republic. This is a Mark Herman and Jeff Engelstein design, same design team that did Versailles 1919, which I like. I'm not sure I've seen the playtest map. Let's take. Okay, that's a playtest map. But it's a playtest map, right? It doesn't have to look good. I probably wouldn't have put that on the webpage though. People will be complaining that that's the final map, even though they say it's a playtest map. This is a topic of high interest to me. Very interested in seeing this. I don't know if this is the same project that Mark was talking about, maybe tongue-in-cheekly, that was also to be known as the plot to assassinate Caesar, which I would be all over that too. I'm not sure if this is the same thing or not. But it appears to lean on Versailles 1919, which again I think is very good. So, Where's the Japan? I've had a copy of Where's the Japan passed through my hands at one point, and I just didn't really look at it very closely. I would also like to see a Haitian Revolution game. That would actually be very interesting. All right, moving on. Oh God, we're so far behind. Unconditional Surrender Second Edition, or third printing, I should say. I've played this. I like a lot about it, but there are some things that I don't like about it. I really like the sort of unified mechanic to do all the different types of combat. I think that works really well. I really like the way that it abstracts out air and naval in a way that makes sense for the war in Europe. I don't like the diplomacy system, and I don't like the fact that it takes as long to play as it does. Because other than the play time, I think this is an outstanding game. I just think it takes an awful long time to play. The diplomacy system is something I can frankly ignore, although it does potentially introduce a number of goofy anomalies, such as Italy on the Allied side, for example, which I recognize was a thing that was more possible than a lot of people think it was, but it nevertheless basically shits up the game. So I'm in favor of just not having that happen. Under the Southern Cross, this is South American Republics in the Age of Fighting Sail. This is a Flying Colors series game. Mike Nagel and Stephen Paul. Don't know if I've ordered this or not, but I will absolutely buy it. I like this series a lot. The South American wars are actually quite interesting, as it turns out. And it's a great series. So, and it's like squadron level Age of Sail combat. It's not incredibly simple, and you might think it's simple. You might hear people say, I think I probably said, oh, it's simpler than Wooden Ships and Iron Men. Yeah, but that's not really the good description. It's a different scale than Wooden Ships and Iron Men, and that's the difference. It's not that much simpler, but it is a different scale that makes it easier to run multiple ships or a whole squadron rather than one or two ships, which is what Wooden Ships and Iron Men is, or say Close Action, is good at. So totally buying this Under the Southern Cross. Next up, Unconditional Surrender Western campaigns. This is what Unconditional Surrender brought to a very slow download page. Looks like the scale is blown up a little. Maybe not. Let's look at the Poland map. Oh, I've just completely shut the browser up. This is a very similar scale to the regular Unconditional Surrender. So I'm a little curious as to exactly what we're being sold here. Are we getting strategic level game covering World War II campaigns? Okay. So these are, but there are Poland and France scenarios in Unconditional Surrender. So are these just? Oh, another thing really nice about Unconditional Surrender is the scenarios are structured very well to teach you the basics of the games. It's one of the better deployments of that I've seen, and I've seen several that use basically those same scenarios to teach you the game system. That kind of looks like that. I mean, maybe that's cool, and I like the game system and taking shortening up the playtime and taking out the diplomacy system might in fact be the fix for me for the unconditional surrender system. Virgin Queen second printing, point to point map, giant. I think I would say 4 to 6 player game on this. I believe that's correct. Point to point map, card driven game based on a pretty close relative of Here I Stand. It's a very good game. I've played this. It has the same multiplayer game issue that you have with a lot of these games where it's like it takes 5, 6, 8 hours to play and you got to get 5 or 6 people together, but it's more forgiving in terms of player count than Here I Stand is. So a lot of games that are get planned of Here I Stand, but then somebody doesn't show up, end up being Virgin Queen games, and that's happened to me. But very good game. I'm going to mispronounce this. Zheng He or Zheng He, Admiral of the Ming Voyages. This is a Jeff Engelstein, David Thompson game. I believe this will be David's first thing from GMT, and it is a solitaire game. Do we have a map? We do have a map. This is not a final map. This sounds very interesting. I've heard David talk about this. This is another interesting topic. Clearly, I need more water down here. Jesus. And this is the famed Chinese admiral that brought Chinese culture and to all over the place, including the west coast of Africa. And you can see all the way up. The map goes all the way up to Cairo. This looks really interesting and really neat. I believe I heard David talking about it on a podcast. And that may have been Liz Davidson's podcast, or it may have been Harold Buchanan's podcast. I don't remember. It was a while ago. But this looks pretty neat. I'm totally buying this. Battle Command Volume 1. This is a game designed by Michael Gustafsson. And this is Operation Crusader and Battle of the Bulge. And this is the successor to the Fast Action Battles system, which apparently just didn't take off. If one of you folks could take care of the porn bots, that would be great. Let's see if that works. Okay, well, I got it. The fast action battle system, actually there was 3 games in the series, and I don't know that anybody thought it was bad. It just didn't seem to take off, and the whole series got dropped. But then it got turned into this non-block system, Battle Command, based on the Rick Young system. So this looks interesting. The fast action battles look pretty interesting, but I don't know if I need this. I don't know. I'm willing to hear more about it. It's not there yet, but if you're interested, Operation Crusader or Battle of the Bulge, just look at the Crusader map. Actually, yeah. Okay. 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 So potentially interesting. Lord knows I got enough games on that topic. Bear Trap, Soviet Afghan War. Did an interview with Paul Daniels, the designer. This is on the Soviet Afghan War, and you might look at the map and say, "Oh, it looks like a coin game." It's not. It doesn't really look much like a coin game. It's sort of big hexes. It's a bit abstract. It's not like a super hardcore war game, but it's got a lot of the sort of insurgency elements. Go listen to the interview if you want to hear more about this. I think this is a very promising looking game on a topic that we don't see a lot of games about. Borikin, the Taino Resistance. This is the early Spanish colonizers coming into Puerto Rico and subjugating the local population. But it looks like a good design. It's designed by Julio E. Nazario. This does look very interesting. This hasn't made its number yet, but there's a bunch of stuff. There's an interview with Shelf Stories, which I've also been on with them. This looks like an interesting topic. I'm very curious to see this game. Next up is Decisive Action by Joe Chacon. This was just announced, and of course, so what this is tactical modern combat between U.S. and Russian forces. So the joke that ran around was that there's been an emergency errata released. The errata is that you should take the Russian order of battle and throw it in the garbage can. So that aside, I think Joe's got good instincts as a designer. So I'm curious to see what he does here. However, as a modern tactical game, this is not of interest to me. I wouldn't object to hearing more about it, but modern tactical is something I have no interest in whatsoever. Fighting Formations, U.S. 29th Infantry Division. Fighting Formations is a Chad Jensen game series. This is another like World War II tactical series, but this is another one that's supposed to do some really interesting and innovative things. So I would actually like to see Fighting Formations as well. Was Borikin from the Zenobia contest? I don't think so, but maybe. I'm not sure. Hannibal's Revenge, a game by Mark McLaughlin, second game in the Card Conquest series. Do I know anything about the Card Conquest series? Containing Hitler's Reich, which is a game with a problematic rulebook from what I hear, but there is a new rulebook available for that. And then this Hannibal's Revenge. What do we have? Sample cards. So this is it giving me like a summary of exactly what Hannibal is doing? 219 BC. Okay. So it's Hannibal versus Rome, pretty much. So for those who like Hitler's Reich, and it's another one of those things that that this hasn't been on the P500 for that long, but it certainly didn't boom its way to 500 either. I want to say this has been on P500 for approximately a year, something like that. And I mean, sometimes these games take years to hit their number. Yeah, but this thing this is what people were saying, Jeff, and I don't have a real position on whether they should do this or not. But they just made the announcement like in the last update in the middle of October. So it is plausible that this won't make it. And maybe that's because of the negative reaction to the rulebook for Hitler's Reich, too. That's plausible. I mean, I'm always up for Roman stuff if they're good. That said, I didn't pre-order this. Infernal Machine, Dawn of Submarine Warfare. This is another one of these things where I said, yeah, I don't need that. And then I heard more about it and I was like, yeah, this sounds really neat. This is Jeremy White and Ed Ostermeyer, and it is building submarines in the U.S. Civil War, and then I think you run missions with them, and then you all die. But because that's how that worked. But this sounds actually pretty neat. I haven't ordered this, but again, I'm going to be watching this very closely for a potential buy at some point. Iron Storm, the First World War, 1914 to 1918. This is a game designed by Edgar Fennelar and development by Joe Dewhurst. All right, so this map is very attractive. So it's a World War I point-to-point map. Okay, there's kind of a lot of games in the World War I point-to-point map space, and frankly, kind of a lot of strategic level World War I games in general. I mean, Compass alone is responsible for like 6 of those. This map looks really attractive. So I don't know how much room anybody has for another World War I strategic game, but this is supposed to be fast moving, playable in a medium sitting of 3 to 5 hours, and that's attractive right there. So I'm curious to see more about this. I really do. I can't zoom into this for some reason, but I really do like this map. There's a lot of Compass games about World War I that aren't strategic level 2. I'll point out Napoleon in Egypt. So this is one of Napoleon's lesser known campaigns. I shouldn't say lesser known because the expedition to Egypt is actually fairly famous, but there's not many games on it, comparatively speaking. I mean, compared to Waterloo or Austerlitz or whatever. This is a 2-player card-driven point-to-point game by Pascal Toupy and Tom Toupy Durant. And you can see the point-to-point map here. It's supposed to play quite quickly. This is, Napoleon's 1798 campaign in Egypt. It actually is a far more interesting topic than I thought it was going to be. When I started listening to the podcast about it, I'm like, oh, he's going to spend like 15 episodes on Egypt. Jesus. And it was actually very interesting, and I would probably buy this personally. So, which means I probably should order it because I'm not sure that I have. But this is a pretty promising looking game on an undertreated Napoleonic subject. No Retreat Battles 1942. So this gives you smaller scale engagements in the no retreat system. In this game, you get Veliki Luki, Stalingrad, Gazala, Guadalcanal, and Dieppe. And there's no pictures of any of this. I'm curious about these to see, how well this mechanic. There's no reason this wouldn't work, but I'm curious to see the implementation of that mechanic set to a very different scale. Um, so, yeah. So Jeff's talking about Al Nafi's the Great War, and I looked at that, and this is going to sound shallow, but was turned off by the presentation. All right, Rebellion Britannia, Resistance Against Rome in First Century Britain by Maurice Suckling and Daniel Burt. Is this a coin game? Because I don't think it's a coin game. On the other hand, I mean, there's a coin game on a literally adjacent topic here too. So maybe there wasn't seen to be enough room for a coin game. Yeah, this is challenging. This is very challenging. It's an absolutely good point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm lukewarm on this. I'm interested in the period, but I'm a bit lukewarm on this. I've got games about this already that I really do like. Tank Duel Tank Pack number 2, the Eastern Front. It's a tank pack for Tank Duel, and it contains 8 tank boards, 5 battle cards, combined rules, and scenario booklet. I haven't played Tank Duel. It's very popular at conventions. It is it's pretty cool. It's kind of like a party game for wargamers, as far as I could tell. All right, 1960, The Making of the President, third printing. This is a game designed by David Haggerty. Is that right? Oh, thanks for burying that. Anyway, third printing of this. It's supposed to be a good game. I wouldn't mind playing it. I'm not going to buy it until I play it. A distant plane, fourth printing. This one I had, and it is possibly my least favorite coin game of the ones I've played. Even though the topic is contemporary, I think the execution is really good. But I think my problem with it was that I spent too much time between games of it, so I kind of lost the thread. I don't own it anymore. Don't be stunned if I end up with buying it again at some point. Because that's a thing that happens. Ardennes 44, fourth printing. Great game. Mark Simonich, Battle of the Bulge 2 mapper. Can be played comfortably in a weekend or I think you could, maybe a real marathon session if you did it in one session. But it's a very good game. A very good Bulge game. Bayonets and Tomahawk second printing. This is one of a couple of games that GMT pushed out in 2021 that hit off really well. The other of which being Atlantic Chase. And this is going to get I have every confidence that this will get reprinted. First time designer too, as far as I'm aware. Mark Rodriguez. This is the French and Indian War. It's supposed to be very good. The map, it's certainly, the components are all pretty. A lot of people I've seen that have played this really, really liked it. Commands and Killers Ancients, expansion number 6, the Spartan Army. I don't have this. I don't need this. I've got 2 expansions for Commands and Colors Ancients already. It's more than it supports the amount of play that I do of it. I own all the Napoleonic stuff on the other hand. Cataclysm, a Second World War second printing. This is a game by, once again, William Turtoslavich and Scott Muldoon. I've played this and I did not care for it, but I am willing to try it again because I feel like I think the problem was more me not getting it than the game sucking. So I'd kind of like to give this another try, and uh, a second printing might be motivation for me to do that. Chariots of Fire second printing. I don't need this. I already have this. This is Great Battles of History. It is warfare in the Bronze Age, including the really kind of awesome Siege of Troy battle with Achilles and Hector and all this stuff. It's pretty neat. And a bunch of ancient Mesopotamian chariot battles too. Many of which are very thinly documented, I have to say. But nonetheless, this is actually really pretty cool. Troy is the best documented battle in this box, as far as I can tell, and they're drawing it all from the Odyssey. But it's really neat. This is a pretty cool set, and once again, one of the interesting things about Great Battles of History is it kind of shows you the interaction between different weapons and tactical systems and doctrines, and this adds another piece to that toolkit. I'm going to start moving super fast here. Combat Commander Europe 5th printing. Combat Commander, I don't like it. A lot of people do. I'm not necessarily right. They're not necessarily wrong. Combat Commander Mediterranean 3rd printing. Same thing. I've played this one too. Didn't like it. Combat Commander Resistance. Haven't played this. This is basically a scenario pack, but I believe it's in a box, so it's got kind of a lot of stuff. Very well supported system. Very popular system. Tons of people love it. Don't listen to me. Commands and Colors Medieval 2nd printing. It's great. Buy it. Commands and Colors Napoleonics for the Austrians. Great. They're Austrians. The Russians. Samurai. Commands and Colors Samurai battles. But we got a lot of this coming up. A lot of this has hit P500 relatively recently. This came out in 2021. I happen to know for obvious reasons. And if you're interested in this topic, then I would absolutely get this. It's a great like package. This is actually a new version of an older game that came out with miniatures from another publisher by Zvezda. And I would just as soon play this with blocks. So if I was going to buy this, I would buy this version. Conquest of Paradise. This is a Kevin McPartland game. This looks really pretty neat. I think I would like this a lot, and I probably should buy it. And it's a 3rd printing, and it's going to get reprinted sometime in 2026 is my total guess. Enemy Coast Ahead, the Dambuster Raids. It's fantastic. It's a solitaire game, but it's a really neat solitaire game. Is this Jeremy White? It is. This is a really neat game, and the next game on the list is also really neat. And I would love it, Jeremy, if you would get to game number 3 in the program. This is the Doolittle Raid. This is even cooler. I think these are really good solitaire games. They're really full solitaire experiences, and they're some of the best solitaire games that don't feel like they're games that are like providing you with a fake opponent, right? They're kind of holistically engineered solitaire experiences. It's hard to explain in the remaining negative 4 minutes that I have left. But I really like these two games. Falling Sky, it's a coin game. It's Caesar against the Vercingetorix and a bunch of other random Gauls. I've played this. It's very good. I like it a lot. Fields of Despair. This is West Front World War II hex map block game. There's a lot to this. I was very surprised in a very good way when I played this. I really think this is a very strong game that deserves a reprint. Gandhi, 2nd printing. I have this, haven't actually played it. Here I stand. I have this. I have played this multiple times. It's great. If you don't have it, go ahead and buy it. Holland 44. It's great. Go ahead and buy this if you don't have it already. One of my probably the best. I don't want to say small market garden game. Let's call it a medium market garden game. I think this is the best medium market garden game that I have. And I have a couple of big ones too. Hoplite, 2nd printing. Great Battles of History. Greek Warfare. One of the biggest battles in the entire series is in this set. That's Plataea. It's really big. This is a very good set. It does introduce a couple of new things to Great Battles of History mechanically. So those who didn't like the old activation system, may well find that this game fixes that for them. Labyrinth: The Awakening second printing. I believe I have this as an expansion to Labyrinth. Labyrinth is great. Go buy it. Third printing, Maneuver. I'll be honest, I didn't really get into Maneuver. I had it for a while. It is sort of a vaguely Napoleonically themed chess-like exercise. That's not really something I'm into. There are plenty of people that do like this thing, as evidenced by the fact that it's up for a third printing. Nevsky second printing. Very fascinating topic. Russians, including Alexander Nevsky, versus the Teutonic Knights. A lot of people don't like the box cover. I don't care. The internal components are all astonishingly gorgeous. Peloponnesian War second printing. I've got this, and I'm probably not going to play it. I have decided. I think my choice of Peloponnesian War game is going to end up being Epic of the Peloponnesian War because it's more my style than this. This nevertheless looks really good. It's the Victory Games classic Mark Herman game. Red Flag over Paris. I've got this. I haven't managed to play it. The funny story is I brought this to Winterfest thinking this year actually, thinking this would be a good pickup game. And it didn't get busted out until we had come back from eating the prime rib dinner, and I had eaten about 1.5 pounds of beef. And I was in a meat haze and could not comprehend this rule book whatsoever. So I haven't actually played this yet, but it does look really good, and it's on a very interesting topic. Silent Victory third printing. Submarines, U.S. submarines in the Pacific. Solitaire, Gregory M. Smith. It's very good. If you're interested in the topic, you should have this. Space Empire's fifth printing is a magnificent game. I love it. I don't need this because I've had a couple of the previous printings at this point. Space Empire's Close Encounters, got this too. Don't need that. And Replicators, Sword of Rome. We're into the reprints where I honestly have almost all of them that I am even vaguely interested in. Sword of Rome is a card-driven, point-to-point game about early Rome, and it's multiplayer. And the last version and this next version will have the 5th player expansion with it, so you could play with 4 or 5 people. I haven't actually played this. This actually looks quite neat, though, and I would like to. Talon. This is the space combat game by Jim Crone, which doesn't exactly tie into Space Empires, but you can use it with Space Empires, but I don't like it. It feels to me like simplified Starfleet battles to a degree, and I like Starfleet battles, so I was just not going to be satisfied with this. And I don't think the interface with Space Empires 4X is strong enough for that to be a selling point either. Tank Duel Enemy in the Crosshair second printing. Tank Duel has been very popular. The Dark Summer, I've got this too. This is Ted Racer's Normandy game. It looks really good. The Hunters is a great game. If you're not aware of that, I've got video on that. Everybody's got video on that. Thunder Alley Crew Chief expansion, designed by Richard Launius. I am not into racing games at all, so if you're into this, check it out. It's $15. So I'm sure it's great, but I am not into that at all. Twilight Struggle. So this is the turn 0 and promo packs. I have Twilight Struggle, of course. I think you do want the turn 0 thing. It really adds a lot to Twilight Struggle, in my opinion. So I recommend this if you are interested in Twilight Struggle. All right, second to last, Washington's War third printing. So I did not have Washington's War. I watched some video on Washington's War that convinced me that I wasn't going to like it. And then I rethought that, and a few years later, in fact, I think last year or the year before, I picked up Washington's War, and I would actually like to try it. Mark Herman game used to be called We the People. Reasonably revised from the original Avalon Hill We the People, though. Last up is World War II Barbarossa to Berlin. This is Ted Racer's point-to-point. What do we got for the map? Just a tiny section of the map. I don't know if this is going to get new art or not. This is a well-regarded game. It's a real kind of a rarity to see point-to-point World War II, and I'm not sure why. But it's unusual for that. I will say that I do not like this cover. It's I think is just too busy. Um, it would be good if it got a new cover, and if Roger did a new cover for it, that would be great. I just think there's kind of too much going on this cover. Other than that, I have no particular qualms about this game. All right, so whew, that has been an exhausting 2 hours and 11 minutes, and I should have known that we were going to run long considering this. So remember, you are going to see some kind of video. Not sure what that looks like yet because it's going to depend on what I do at Compass Expo. But expect to see some Compass Expo video from me, possibly starting on Wednesday, if not probably on Thursday, and then some more over the weekend. I'm not sure what that'll look like. But as a result, you're getting that instead of next week's counter clipping show. So there will be no counter clipping show next Monday. I thought about it, I was like, I probably won't get home until at least 6 p.m. I can't spend 8.5, 9 hours in the car and then hop on stream and be anything less than absolute garbage. So we're not even going to try. We're just going to take that week off. I'll be back on the Tuesday show, which is on this channel, which you may find very interesting. And then we will be back to the normal schedule. And now that a lot of the press of the CSRs is resumed or has sort of blossomed, I guess, we will not have to spend quite as much time on that. I have streamed from the car before. I wouldn't trust my current cellular carrier on that, however. So I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please thumbs up the video. Please go vote in the CSRs if you have not done so already. I intend to spend no more than 3 to 4 minutes in each 2-hour show on the CSRs, and I think I did a little over that tonight. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you all you'll see me next Tuesday, not next Monday, and then we'll be back to this show the Monday after that. Everybody have a great rest of the night.